All right, what's the objective here? Present a case for replacing the traditional chord naming system with a mode-centered approach. Now, obviously, I don't think we can completely do away with the current naming conventions, but I would propose that you would like to learn a system that's more intuitive, that makes it easier to jot things down and be able to then code switch or bridge over to the current naming convention, something way easier to do these days because we have things like ChatGTP, where you could just basically plug in your system into ChatGTP and say, just convert it, which it can do way more easily than converting like a language, because music is completely logical if you have a system that makes any sense. And if your system don't make sense, that doesn't make sense, because it should make sense because it's completely logical. Okay, so thesis. The mode-based system offers greater accuracy, logic, and spatial awareness for guitarists and other musicians. So in particular, the guitar fretboard, which is mimicked here with the low or heavy E string, the one closest to the ceiling on top, is completely symmetrical, unlike the piano. So I will say that these concepts, I do believe, would be a better way to envision even the piano. I say even the piano because the piano is not completely symmetrical. So you might have some memorization techniques to try to memorize your fingering as you go through the 12 different positions for the 12 different scales. But the guitar is totally symmetrical. So our goal on the guitar is to take advantage of that. We want everything to be shiftable. Everything should be shiftable. If it's not, and it could be, then you should fix it. You should do it better. My theory is always going to be, is there an easier way to do it? Is there an easier way to learn something than has historically been built up? If there is, the question is, would it be worth my time to learn it the easier way, which would be faster, and then bridge the gap to communicate with others? Or would it be better to try to learn it the more complex way? Most of the time, you would be better off you're taking the eagle's pass, how the crow flies, right? You want the shortest distance to get to your goal, which is to be able to navigate the fretboard, and then bridge the gap for basically communication, or try to bridge that gap as you are learning. That, I think, you'll advance way faster. So here's our analogy of the fretboard. We're going to say the fretboard is the map of the territory. And there's going to be 7 actually destination locations on it. Notice that there's 12 actual locations, but we're going to say the non-destination locations are like the oceans in the globe. We go through them, we're going to touch in on them, but that's not where we want to land, because we're human beings and we need land to land on. So for example, down here, we have our, what I would call position number 1. And let's just lay out the continents as though it's the globe. So I'm just going to lay it out here. So this is, the 6 is going to be North America. And then over here we have Europe is going to be is the 7. And then Asia we'll have as the 1. We have South America is going to be the 2. Africa the 3. And then Australia the 4. And finally Antarctica the 5. So there's our continents. Now you can see the continents repeat. So we have to basically see the pattern is repeating, but the continents are always the same. So now the continents will change perspective if we're looking at it from, say, space, which is equivalent to us, our head, over the top of the guitar. Our head's up here looking over the top of the guitar, and we can visualize the guitar shifting around in a similar way as the world rotating around, imagining it has 12 different vantage points from our perspective up top over the guitar. We name those by the 12 different notes. So if I say that I'm in note 4 position or the C major position, then the whole shape is going to be looking like this. If I was in C sharp, then the whole thing would rotate, the planet would be rotating to the right, and it would be over here. Now, how would we want to visualize the guitar once we've determined the 12 different viewpoints? If I determine that I'm going to look at it from the viewpoint of the C, then I no longer want to look at it by note names. I want to look at it by the thing that doesn't change, the continent names, which could be the Nashville number system, 1 through 7, which is basically the same thing as saying that you're looking at it by mode. Ionian Phrygian, Mixolydian, and so on. Why? Because those are the continents that don't change. So those will always be the same. And I want to look at basically those relationships. Why don't we do that? Well, historically, it didn't get built up that way because they were using the 7 notes on basically a piano, and then the piano jammed in the other sharps and flats, and it kind of built from there. The naming construction kind of built from there. And so the guitar is completely symmetrical, and if we rethink it to the most optimal way, this is the most optimal way. Now, there's another problem, that the naming convention that was put in place because of the historical building of the music theory has implications in it that pulls us out from the most logical way to view the guitar. That happens when we talk about distance, interval distance. It also happens when we talk about the chord names. So it's okay to use the chord names, but what we'd like to do is get a better understanding from a spatial center perspective on the guitar. That'll help us better visualize the guitar. It'll also help us better to jot down our ideas, which is the point of like tablature or sheet music or something like that, which we can do much more easily within the context of a song, and being able to map out visually, be able to visually memorize or see what you're doing if you use a modal centered system. All right.